All right, we're popping up. Should be here. Yep, here we go. We're on. Let's just do a quick Sharesies. I've been hanging with my kids too much. I'm using weird words.
Oh, you have no idea. There we go. I've got it shared on my end.
All right,
I
cool.
wish this intro part was more smooth. I don't like how clunky it is.
I know. We're just not that slick. But all right, I'm going to punch it up and off we go. Slightly above average gamers, way above average podcast. Welcome to the Slightly Above Average Gaming Podcast with your hosts, J007tv and SuboneKD.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 49 of the Slightly Above Average Gaming Podcast. I am J007tv, joined as always by SuboneKD. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing good on this fine Saturday morning.
Yep. We were hoping to record yesterday, but between Jay and I, we just had so much going on. We had to punt it, and here we are. So hopefully, we want to get a Friday time slot. It would be nice, but it is what it is.
I would like Fridays a little more because I feel like Saturdays, dude, it's like legit, like roll out of bed and then it just doesn't stop until you go to bed. Essentially, between the podcast, I'm going and helping wife at the market tear down her booth, and then I come back and stream or whatever, and then you've got a ton of stuff going on yourself.
Yeah, it's the way it happens. But no, we're here. We're live. We're getting the recording going. So if you're listening to this next week on either Spotify, Apple Podcast, or anywhere else that we post it. We are starting to record it live on broadcasting on Twitter, or X, whatever. So follow us, follow our account there, and we will you'll get that notification if you turn those on, and you can come hang out with us, talk in the chat. We don't necessarily answer questions as often, but sometimes we'll see something that might get you there. But we do have plans to do some community hangouts and community game nights. So we've got some stuff in the works on that aspect, but yeah, how's your week in gaming been? I know you've been kind of straying from first person shooters a little bit, but I don't think you were saying it's as enjoyable as you want it to be.
Well, so I've still been playing Call of Duty. I've been running a lot of solos. I haven't been playing as much multiplayer as I want to or I should. I've almost been going, from warming up to just going straight into solos, because I do enjoy running the solos, but I've been playing through the PC Game Pass or PC Pass Ultimate or whatever. So if you get the Ultimate, I believe you get parts of EA Play for free. So there's certain EA games that you're able to play for free. So yes. I've been playing the EA Sports PGA Tour Road to Augusta golf game the last couple weeks. 2 Fridays in a row, that's pretty much what I've done. I didn't even play Call of Duty, and it can be as frustrating as playing Call of Duty, but it's so crazy how hard that game is. Like, to me it is. I mean, I've been getting my ass just outright kicked anyway. Yeah. I mean, even when I'm playing the computer, but usually I'll play with a couple buddies, and we'll have a good time. I know there's a lot, like I was telling you earlier, there's a lot more downtime. So more beers are drank when I'm playing that game versus when I'm sitting and playing Call of Duty. If you can actually believe that.
Absolutely. I mean, that's like real golf, right? Like in real golf, you're just sitting in the golf cart sometimes, just drinking beers, watching everybody catch up to your ball. Not me personally, because I'm always just chasing my ball, over here and then over there and then back over here and then sometimes behind me because I suck at golf. But, other people, then they sit in the golf cart and drink.
Yeah, and it's very frustrating sometimes, too. It's like when you want the ball to sit on the green, it won't sit. But when you need it to roll, it won't fucking roll. I'm in the weeds and the sand a lot, just like in real life. I mean, the good thing is I'm not going through a whole fucking box of 15 or 18 golf balls per round. At least that doesn't cost me anything. But
yeah,
but no, it's been good. Just kind of adding something else in to just kind of vibe with, and play because I think we're just at a part of time of the season, time of the year for Call of Duty where it's starting to get a little bit mundane at times, I guess.
A little bit. It's not, we're kind of in the tail end of it, right? So the content's drier than usual. There's less coming out. The player base is down. It's just not, it's kind of getting to that point of the year where it's like it's winding itself down. It's not as exciting, especially right after a Reloaded update. It's kind of like, the lobbies are just extra sweaty. Everything's gearing up for the next game. So, we're getting there. We're getting there. So it's good to have other games to toss in. I've been playing through Full Throttle,
Nice.
which is a 90s side scroll action adventure, type game from LucasArts back when LucasArts didn't suck. And so that's been enjoyable. One of my favorite soundtracks of all time. One of the few soundtracks I've actually bought on CD. So great game. If you haven't checked it out, you can pick it up on Xbox for like $1 or sometimes $1 or $2. I think I bought it for like $1.50. It's great. But I know you've been paying attention to the World Series of Warzone scrims as we get ready for that.
I have.
How's that? What's our World Series of Warzone report look like?
Well, I mean, listen, they're scrimming just about every single day. There's either scrims or tournaments. Obviously SSD is just fucking, still doing what they do. It's so funny. We talked about them a little bit last week, and one of the big things they do is they have a shit ton of money all the time. They had $42,000 in the last circle in one of the matches I saw them play the other day. That's insane. On
That's
top
a lot
of
of money.
Probably what had to have been probably 5 or 10 fucking advanced UAVs that they already popped. Like they just had a shit ton of money, man. But no, some of the other teams are starting to really, I think, kind of gel and come together a little bit. Like I've been watching DJ and Aiden and Smith.
Mm-hmm.
They actually won the scrims the other day.
Okay.
And then Soka and Shifty, and then it looks like, I believe, they didn't have Biffle, got second. But some of the other team, Brax's team got third that day. So they're
Okay.
you know what?
They're
It
doing
might not. It might not be as big of a runaway as I was thinking.
And you got to wonder how much of these other teams are just kind of like they're keeping what they actually want to do on the down low, and they're just doing like, quietly doing stuff on the side together instead of like, it's like the preseason, right? Like in football,
Right.
you don't run your secret trick plays in the preseason for everyone to see before you get into a game scenario, right?
Right.
Yeah. So
unless you're just the baddest kids on the block like SSD and you just don't give a shit. So.
So, hopefully World Series of Warzone turns into something other than a runaway train.
Yeah.
And we have a wild competitive ending because, if it goes the way we all predict it going, it's going to be kind of like everyone's going to tune out halfway through because it'll be over before it starts. But
yeah,
you never know. But yeah, it's going to be. Like I said, I'm curious to see how it goes. I hope it goes well. I hope it's competitive and fun.
Speaking of the competitive thing, like, because I like to watch that stuff, right? Like, There's a pretty stark difference between this year and last year. Like, even it just didn't seem like there was as much competitive stuff for Warzone 2 as there is for this. There are literally tournaments every day. It seems like here, and then obviously with all the scrims and everything else, it's great to watch that high level gameplay. That's why I enjoy the comp side of things. I mean, same thing with, the CDL. I like watching that too. But yeah, no, it's nice to actually see some of these teams, like I said, some of these other teams starting to kind of put some stuff together and make some plays. So
good. Yeah. And we've had we're just like every other year when we get into World Series of Warzone time, Call of Duty goes through and just starts making changes to stuff. so they have to adapt on the fly to that. We had not only so Reloaded dropped this was it this week, last week?
Yep. No, it
last
was
couple of
Wednesday.
days?
Just this Wednesday. Yeah, a couple days ago.
World Series of Warzone, or the big Reloaded update dropped, and with that they started the process of kind of adjusting how the game operates. So if you recall, last week we mentioned that they started talking about the updates they're bringing through, and one of them is spinning Warzone into its own launcher, or into its own into its own title in the launcher, instead of attaching it to each individual game. So I hope that means that they've got their infrastructure set up enough that they can that Warzone can kind of start deviating away from whatever the current title is, which has been a massive improvement over Warzone 1, where it was just always married to 2019, and everything you were doing was adjusting the 2019 game to make it kind of mirror the current, whatever the current iteration was, Cold War or Vanguard. So, we're kind of getting to that point now where we're going to get to see, hopefully, Warzone really develop its own identity, more so than it already has, where things can be positive things can be one way in multiplayer and operate very differently in Warzone. That's what I would like to see. So hopefully we're there. But It came with a big update. I don't know. How big was your update?
I'm thinking it was somewhere around 112 to 115 gigabytes.
Mine, I know on the PC, and I'm using the Xbox, the PC Xbox Game Pass version. It was 117 for me. And then on the Xbox, it was about the same. And so it was just, and then it was throttled all day, so it took forever to download. And I don't know if that was my ISP going, wait a minute, or if it was just because I was trying to upload it or trying to download it when everybody else was. So that was fun.
It took me about probably 30 minutes to download it, maybe. Okay. Again, I've got that AT&T Texas fiber, baby, so it goes pretty fast. I know some updates back in the day on some of the other ISPs that I would have would literally take 2 hours. So I'd have to come in and start it at 3:30 or 4 o'clock if I wanted to be able to play that afternoon.
That's crazy.
So I'm very happy that that I have that fiber or whatever. Did you see in the update? What's the setting? I should know this. There's a setting now that you have to have on
texture streaming.
Yes, and somebody was saying, I think it was Sparrows, was saying that that would be good for people who have fiber internet.
It should be. So basically, what they're doing is, instead of preloading all of the textures and all the information and rendering it locally, they're basically streaming it to your PC off your internet connection, which means you can offload a lot of that processing power and a lot of that data, that storage. You don't have to store all those things and be constantly refetching them. So basically, when you're playing around and you're looking at stuff in the distance, or you're looking, you're moving from one area of the map to another, especially in Warzone, it has to fetch that information from your hard drive and then render it into the game, which is going to tax your, and that's usually done in the GPU, right, and in your RAM. And so if you can stream that stuff, right, and it's pulling that information offline, it's not pulling it locally, it should take a strain off your hardware, which should make it run better for, it should make it run better for everybody, right?
Well, that going to increase the frames, give you a better frame rate?
So this was my beef with the update, is when I went in, my first couple of games, I was getting about 60 to 70 frames, which is terrible. I've invested the money now that the day before the update, I was getting 180 to 190 frames and peaking at 200 frames on the big map.
Wow.
And I was struggling to find 70 frames. And it turns out what they did is they reset a ton of settings. So I had to actually go through and in the loading, while I was waiting for the next game, being like, oh crap, this is not set right, and this is not set right, and this is not, and I had to go through and fix everything. But when I got it all set, now I'm fetching 220, 230. So
Wow.
I'm up 10%.
I don't get those kind of frames. I'm usually around like a good day is usually around 115 to between 115 and 130 or 40 frames. One of the issues that I've had this week, and I don't know why or where it came from, but I had to do a driver update for NVIDIA so I could play that golf game we were talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And when I did that, and then I went back into Call of Duty to play that, to play Warzone, like everything was crazy. Like the blues were really like saturated and just exaggerated. Like even the sky, right? Everything was just so bright and stuff like that. And then the other thing is so like, you know, when you go to the operators, right? Like you want to pick your operator. Take Graves, for example. He's Caucasian. Like they all the white ones had like a pink hue, like really very, very pink and red, and the reds were really exaggerated. And we kind of got it fixed, but now I'm feeling like my game is just like dreary. Like
I feel like, you know, you had an NVIDIA filter set up, like it added like a filter. Did it do that, or did it? But I mean, it changed so much. Like it changed so many feature, like functions in the settings that I had to go down and like hunt down. Like it turned off my DLSS and put something else on that absolutely just murdered my frame rate. And I just had so many things go wrong. I couldn't figure it out. Like I don't understand how it could do that, right? Like why would it generate such a lousy frame rate and like and change all these settings? And it wasn't even like it went to default. It wasn't even like it just defaulted everything.
Right.
Like most of like probably 70% of my settings didn't change. But random stuff was like turned off or like switched around. And I'm like, are you serious? Like, so I had to go through I'm still not done picking through all the details and like making sure it was back where it was. And I'm not even sure like going and resetting it back where it was is going to work. Because I'm going to need to make sure like, because now things are different, right? Because I have to have this texture streaming on. So I need to figure out how to take advantage of that best. And so, yeah, I'm frustrated with that. Like that to me was really not a good experience. And picking up 11% packet loss at the same time did not help.
Yeah, I'm starting to get that a little bit too. The other thing too, so my setup, I have a 2 PC setup. I go through a capture card, but for my birthday last year, I bought a 2K monitor, but I was not playing in 2K for the longest time because my capture card was the HD60S,
right,
and it was 1080. So I just bought the 4K, which will allow for at least a 2K pass through. So that's the other thing that kind of complicated things. I think it still took me like a day or two just to get that up and running. So again, that's why I can't wait to go to a 1 PC setup, because all the troubleshooting between graphics and audio, it's just a bit much, man. And then you got updates like Call of Duty giving out that are going through changing settings and everything else. And I don't even know. And the thing is like you Google, right? Like if you Google or YouTube best graphics settings for Warzone or whatever, you're going to get 5,000 different videos because everybody's setup is different.
Yeah.
So like, how do you like, that's the thing for me. Like that's been kind of a struggle with my settings and stuff like that.
Well, you know, and I think we should dive into settings a little bit more because, you know, everybody said, you know, this is the big difference between PC and Xbox, right? In Xbox, none of this shit mattered to me. So I was just like, whatever. You know, that's a you problem, not me. And now it's a me problem. And so I'm like paying way more attention to this stuff than I ever have. And I think the problem is that everybody's setup is different, right? And so it's like at the end of the day, there's no best settings for everybody, right? Like you can't have a universal best settings because, you know, if you've got your 4090 and your your top of the line Intel chip, but 14 bajillion numbers after that. I don't know Intel numbers. But you're gonna have a different experience than somebody running, their 8 gigabytes of RAM and their 580 GX. That's different settings, different needs.
Yeah, and it's not crisp. I mean, I see Jay commented here on the thing. Yeah, it still doesn't. My game still doesn't look like it used to.
Yeah, but settings, gotta love those settings. But yeah, with that came reloaded, and we did get some patch notes, and we got some changes to the game. God, I have a clip I've got to put out. First game on, ran into that new contract, or not contract, that global event, that advanced UAV thing.
Yeah.
Can we go back to the occupation scan where everyone just lays down for a minute? Because that advanced UAV is got to be one of the worst ideas I've ever run into. Like, it is miserable. Like,
listen, I'm glad they're trying something new. I don't really care for it either, but I'm glad they're at least trying to do something to the game. And I think that probably has to do with pacing. They're probably trying to increase the pace and pick it up for the match. Because there are going to be those teams who, A, don't give a crap about that event, so they're not laying down or getting out of the path. They're just going to go kill you. They're going to see what's on the UAV or on the mini map and go hunt. So
and the problem is it's cool. Like, so if you haven't run into it yet, which means you haven't played the game, because it's been at least 2 out of every 3 games I've hit it so far, where and it's like late circles too. It's not even like it's some corner of the map and the first circle gets it. It's like most of the map is under it. But like the most frustrating one is I was on a rooftop on the outskirts of downtown, and I was fighting another team down below, and so we were sniping and fighting at each other, and then the thing hits. I know where they are. They know where I am, right? But there's a team that's in between the two, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to be clear, like the space on the radar where it shows the UAV is going to be, it's not accurate, because I was outside of that and got hit by it. And then a team that was out, in between the 2 stripes of UAV was able to pinpoint where we are and push us without us getting that indicator. But they knew exactly where we are because the advanced UAV was up. And it was like, I mean, they should have known roughly where we were because we're fighting another team. But like, it was like bing, and they were able to just immediately push our shit in while we were busy dealing with this other team. And it's like, dude, either do the whole map and just reveal everybody, or yank it, right? Like no. And especially since you can't be, it's like with the airstrike, it has the same indicator as the airstrike inbound, where if you are outside the red bar, you're safe from the airstrike, right? That's what the red bar indicates. I was outside of it on the mini map. I was outside of it by a decent amount, right? At least 2 widths of a red dot outside of the red outline that they gave us, and I still got pinged by it. So, it's a suggestion apparently, so you can't plan for it, and it pops up late. We were in what should have been a good spot, right? But
I haven't seen it in solos. I don't think I've seen it in solos. I've seen it when I've been playing trios, but I have not seen it in solos. That doesn't mean it's not in there. I'm just saying I haven't seen it yet.
I haven't played solos yet, so.
The other question I was going to ask, I'm wondering does the stealth vest, does that?
No, that's overridden. They made a change that slipped under the radar, but they made the change where the stealth vest does not hide you from advanced UAVs anymore.
Then what's the fucking point of having it?
Regular UAVs that hide you.
Well, if you run Ghost, which I actually changed, I put Ghost back on my perk package. But Ghost only works if you're moving, right? Like,
they've adjusted that, so there's like a gap between when you stop moving and start moving again. So unless you were laying down in a corner, like, that's really the only time Ghost doesn't help you. But now the stealth vest, is the stealth vest is Ghost, right? Like the two are pretty much on the same page now.
That's interesting.
But yeah, so that was obnoxious. I couldn't handle it anymore.
Those
Like,
community
so
events
annoying.
are obnoxious in a way. The one that, and we were mentioning this before we went live, that I think's the dumbest one, and mainly it's just dumb because of the timing of it. Like
Mm-hmm.
the jailbreak. Why the hell would you do a jailbreak in the last circle? Like, all right, so here's you're essentially just rewarding the people who have lived long enough with free kills because
Yeah.
so like this circle that there was a jailbreak on, and this match was funny because I ended up getting second and I lost to none other than Sparrows. I don't know if you know who that is, but he's top 250. And he's on Twitter. I tweeted him and he was like, GG's, I'm off to duos, solos, or yours or whatever. But like, yeah, it was legit him in my lobby, but whatever. But yeah, so there was a jailbreak at the end, right? And I got like 4 free kills, like, but it was in an area where there was literally one building, and it was up on like the hill or the ridge over there, like one of the hills or ridges. Like there was no cover for people to drop into, nowhere to loot and get plates or anything. It's like basically, I guess it's one of those things that in solos, if you're dumb enough to still be in the game after you've died twice, and then I guess they're like, F your KD.
Yeah.
Have another death?
Yeah. No, I agree. I definitely I prefer the modes that when you're dead, right? Like I like that aspect of the old Warzone where it's like pretty much if you don't make it to the end, you're toast. And getting dropped on by a full team because you've survived late circle is just stupid. I don't hate the idea of the jailbreak, like in general. I think it's cool if it shows up once in a while, like third circle maybe, where you could still land. There's still places to go. You're not, it's not just like 5 rooftops with a team on each rooftop left, right? And all of a sudden it's just like everybody, the horn goes off and everybody's like, all right, time to go play duck hunt, and just starts gunning people out of the air, and so it's it's wild, but it should definitely not be that late in the game, like that. Give it like for a while it was like fourth circle, like or I mean not fourth circle, like second circle, I think. So it was like half the time it's like it comes and goes, and it's like, all right, cool. I've only gotten into one engagement so far in the game, and now that's here, and then you start running into the sweaty teams. I'm like, well, I could have used that 5 minutes ago, but it's good to be done. Like I don't want it late in the game. I think that's absurd. But they did this elite contract system. Have you run into these elite contracts yet? You're muted.
Oh shit! I guess I was muted. No, I have not. Have you?
Yes, I have. I've pulled a few of them. They're cool. So basically, it's like a buff to certain contracts is all it is. But it gives you more cash, more XP, which yay, and it gives you a cool perk when you finish it. So you either get Foresight, an advanced UAV specialist, or one of these eight attachment guns, which is very cool. And so I am, but right now they're like the hot ticket. So like off the drop, man, I have gotten wiped so many times trying to hit one of these off the drop because you can get a bunker key card if you jump on the right ones, and then it's elite, so you get all this extra stuff. Man, I've never, it is rare to see like 4 teams dropping on the same contract and like not backing off, like hard sending it. Chaos.
Well, yeah. So the contract where you can where you go and load it into you have to upload it onto the machine. That's the one you were just talking about, right?
No. So this is everything except for Most Wanted, right?
Okay.
And it's basically an upgrade to the standard contract. So like for example, the bounty, right? If you pull a bounty contract, it cuts the time on your bounty by 35%. So instead of what is it, like 2 minutes? It's like a minute and a half or something, a minute 15. And then the rewards you get for completing that contract are upgraded versus the standard one, right? So you get more, you get a ton more cash, you get a ton more XP, and then you get one of these elite one of these elite drops at the end when you finish it. So it's definitely early game if you can get one, really gives you a leg up. I've chased one. I've had one for they have one for that circle contract like you're referring to. God, I can't remember what that thing is called. But the one where you put the card in the machine and then you have to sit there for a few minutes. So that's definitely that exists. And but they're very sought after. Like early game, especially, people go after them aggressively.
So I got to be honest here. I think I need to probably change my mindset on the contracts. I've never been a big proponent of contracts, right? Like that's never been a real big thing for me, because I've often felt that the risk is a lot of times more so than what the reward would be for it. But I'm watching these people. Like I watch Drade. I've run with Drade, and we've gotten that one upload contract, and then you get the special. You can possibly get specialist perk, and those kind of things out of it. And I can see the actual benefits of doing that. The only thing is like a lot, like you just said, a lot of these contracts are very hot.
They can be.
So it's one of those things. It's just I think it's gonna have to be dependent upon whom I'm playing with, because I play with some people who really, I guess, don't like contact, don't like pushing, and that's fine. That's their style. That's what they're into. Whatever. Fine. But then I play with other people like Riddick, or when I've played with Drade, those kind of things, dude. We're like we're sprinting after those contracts and always having a lot of money. And, I mentioned that about, SSD earlier. That's another thing. Like they're completing contracts. They're getting a lot of cash, and cash equals intel.
Cash is king, man. Cash is king. And look, here's the thing in this game, right? Like this game is designed for aggressive players, right? It has a lot of stuff to help, sentinels. Can we go back to calling them campers? Can we ditch that, please? Can we just call them campers again? The tent jokes are so much better than sentinels. But like there's a lot of features for that playstyle, and that playstyle has a place in the game. But it's really designed at a fundamental level to be aggressive, right? It's designed to reward the aggression, right?
That's Call of Duty as a whole. That's what it always has been.
And I have gone both. I've been on both sides of this spectrum. So it's like I'm not just trying to talk shit. Like I spent most of early Verdansk hiding in attics with heartbeat sensors and claymores everywhere. Like I've been that guy, all right? And then I've changed and gone the other way, okay? But everything from Peeker's advantage to momentum to how aim assist works with drop shotting, to all these things, like being an aggressive player is rewarded, right? And contracts, especially early game, is part of that, right? Like, so you look at some of the contracts on the map, right? You have the forward intel, which thanks to chat, remember the name of that one, where you know what the next circle is going to be. But early game, like with the bunkers in play, I mean, it's like the aggressive player's dream. You have you drop on a forward intel contract, you get the next circle, right? And then if you drop on the right ones that's near a bunker, you get a bunker key card, and you immediately jump in. You get the boots, you get good guns, so in case someone pushes you in the bunker. You get all the contracts, or all the kill streaks you could ever want, and then some. And then you get more than enough money for loadout, right? If you don't get a loadout offhand. And you are basically off rip within the first minute of the game, fully kitted. You know where to go. Oh, and you get and most of the bunkers have that foresight thing in it. That foresight perk, right? Or kill streak, whatever it's called. Yep. So you have all of the information, and then you have money to spend, and you can, while other teams are still looting and looking for something to use, you can push and be aggressive. It is the ultimate aggression playbook. And it's like, and the people that do that have the advantage early, right? And that's fine. Like, that sort of thing is good because it rewards the advantage. It improves everybody's ability to play the game. It definitely makes, it definitely makes it a more aggressive game if you want to play that way. It can be used to be passive, right? You can do that quickly and then run to the final circle and lay down. Like that is also available. But the game, so the game gives both options, right? It gives you the path to do both things, but it definitely does create the reward where if you load up with cash, if you load up with gear early on and you play aggressively, you can keep the cash flow coming in, right? Because every time you kill players, every time you push through an area, you're replenishing your cash, you're getting their loot, you're getting their stuff, and so the game wants to open that door for you. And so I think it's important to recognize that, right? Like if you aren't going to go after contracts, if you aren't going to do the things, like you're probably going to get pushed by somebody who does, especially if you're near a bunker, if you're near one of these, elite contracts that can drop you enough cash to get your load out fast, right? And it's just the way, it's the way the game is designed, right? Like, I don't know how else to say it. Like, this is how it's supposed to be.
It's great that we're having this conversation because I had this conversation over the last day or so with Drade. He's made a couple suggestions on some things that I can change regarding just like loot path and things like that. And then I hopped in his stream yesterday. I think it was yesterday. And he showed me exactly what he's talking about with where he drops. He has a loot path where, because loadout is like $7,500 or something for solos. He has a loot path where he legit has enough ammo, money, and everything. And I swear it was less than 60 seconds on his drop. And he was buy and had his loadout within a minute and a half.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah. Well, you should have loadout in the first 2 minutes of this game, or you should be in the gulag. Like that. Realistically, that's how you should be in this,
right?
In the way the game is structured right now. And I think it's good. If you let me throw the caveat on. Unless you're getting, you run into other teams, you're mixing it up, you're fighting, you're engaged, right? Like if you're left alone, you should have your loadout within 2 minutes, right? If you drop in and you run into another team, and you get pushed by something, like, shit happens, right? And so I'm not saying like, oh, I'm not trying to discount that scenario, but like if you drop in and you're just left alone, and you go 2 minutes and you don't have your loadout, like you're doing something wrong. Like you just are.
Yeah, it's a thought process because what I was doing is I have a drop over at that hotel over by Old Town.
Mm-hmm.
So I would hit the top of the roof for the hotel. I would go down one floor, and then there's a third floor and at the bottom floor. But I would only hit the top and the second, and I just have a path through there that my rotation is literally the same every time. And then I would usually wait for like a minute or two until the free loadout would drop, and then I would immediately push to that. So like I'd usually have action. I usually have action, up on top of the roof immediately on the drop. Sometimes I don't, but most of the time I do. So it would play a little faster at first, and then I'd wait for loadout. So I'd have to kill like a minute and a half or so, 2 minutes, then get loadout and then kind of move around a little bit more. What he's suggesting is, and what we talked about is just hitting that entire building and going and getting loadout and not worrying about the free loadout. That's
free loadout's your backup. Free loadout should be your backup in case you get, pushed by another team.
Well, or if you go to the gulag, like you go to the gulag and you got to come back, and then that's how you regain. And so, I'm gonna start doing that. And again, I'm just an average player, so a lot of these things, I think that's the difference between people like me and then good players. Really, it's mindset and thought process, right? Like it's how they think.
And gun skill.
That too. That too.
But yeah, it's been interesting. They did have a good update this week, in terms of weapon balancing, I think, kind of shifted some stuff. It opened doors, at least. It didn't
Right.
upend things. Like if you don't change your loadout from last week to this week, you're probably not going to be at a huge disadvantage unless you were running something wonky. But it definitely did open doors. I know we talked a little bit. Iceman had a tweet, and he had an update. I know Warzone Loadout has looked at stuff. I've done through some of the details a little bit, and
you want to go through the patch notes, or you just want to hit some of the highlights of the patch
let's
notes?
just hit the highlights. We got a lot to talk about today.
Yeah, I don't know that going through and reading every bit of the patch notes.
Our audience reads it above 6th grade level. I'm sure they can figure it out.
Yeah, I mean,
I have faith in you all.
I'm pretty sure. But what stood out to you from the patch notes?
Well, okay, so the change to the STG is interesting. Offhand, it only affects the close range damage, the first damage range. But you have to understand the first damage range is 40 meters. So it kind of alters the entire gun. So I think it takes the STG off the top tier sniper support meta, because now it's not going to compete with SMGs at all, and
right.
so it's not as viable close range. And the longer range is kind of it puts it in an interesting spot. So before, if you were hitting combination shots, it was an even 600 TTK, which was phenomenal across the board, right? So it would win fights. You could win fights at every range up to like 45 meters. And so by reducing that, and they did it significantly, it was 4 points per shot. So it definitely added time to it. So you end up with 100 milliseconds difference in the first damage range out to 40 meters or something like that. And so that really opens up the door to other things. They buffed the pulley out significantly across the board. They buffed fire damage, they buffed range, they buffed damage. So they gave that a huge buff. And so now when you match them within the first 40 meters, they're dead even. Okay. And so the Pouliot and the STG will kill in the same time.
The difference is handling, though.
Well, there's a couple of differences. So the STG, though, at about 50 meters, basically has cement shoes strapped to its trigger guard and thrown into the ocean because it just drops off, right? Like you're looking at at 50 meters, it's like 1200 milliseconds to kill, and it gets worse, right? And the Pouliot, its maximum is under 900. It's like 890 or something like that at maximum range, like at infinite range. So the Pouliot it should absolutely be in your arsenal, right? But the problem is, like you alluded to, is it's an LMG, and it's like an LMG's LMG, right? Like it's not like the Holger where it was like, okay, it's really kind of more of an AR with a bigger mag by default, and so you kind of let it do its, you could use it readily, right? The Pouliot is slow, right? It's slow to pull out. It's got like a 430, 440 ADS time when you're using it for range, right? And so it's kind of like, it's not ideal. It's got a really bad slow transition up and down. I mean, it's an LMG's LMG. It's what an LMG should be. It's big, it's slow, it's heavy. It just absolutely rips your head off at range. And so I think people playing more aggressive with it are going to struggle because they're going to get caught in scenarios where, people are too close and they can't, and you can't maneuver with it because it's slow. And you can't transition off of it fast enough to get it to stay in that gunfight. So people that are on rooftops shooting it, right, and they get pushed, they're basically going to get hosed. And that's going to be, so there's a lot of that transition space, and I think it's going to really struggle up to about 30 meters. But from 30 meters on, right, if you're fighting outside of that 30 meter range, it's going to be the best gun in the game, I think, unless you're sniping.
So I got absolutely deleted with it the last time I played, and it was fucking done. I mean, this dude was, he fucking deleted me.
Yeah.
But I watched Drade running the pulley the other day, and yeah, dude, he was actually playing, but he's an aggressive player. He's a good player.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, he was running and gunning with it, dude. It was pretty funny.
It definitely is in a good spot. I think it's going to struggle a little bit in Resurgence because of how fast Resurgence moves, especially on Rebirth Island, right? Like, unless you are holding down a spot, it's going to be a challenge to use it as well, especially because, on Resurgence, you're going to see more of the Car 98, and that's going to be more viable. You're going to see more, more players playing aggressive with SMGs, so you're going to get pushed up close a lot. And so I think there's going to be, I think it has absolute usage in the game, but it doesn't have as deep an effect. It's not as useful in as many scenarios as the STG in its prime was, because the STG, you could run that, you could kill with that up close. It was fast. It was mobile. It was an AR. It was the AR all ARs should be, right? It had good handling, good mobility. And within its main damage range, it beat everybody. Okay.
It's been the best AR we've had in this iteration of Warzone. Like, not even close. But I'll tell you though, the nerf to it, to me, feels like it's only about a bullet. But I was talking to DJ about this, and he said where you're going to see the bigger difference is at the range. It's going to feel like it takes forever to kill somebody, like at range.
Yeah.
So. But it's not. I still think that Alex tweeted from COD-Munity. He tweeted the other day. It's still meta. Like it's not.
It's not out of the meta. No. But I think it. But the door is now open. Of like, if you aren't running it, you're not at the same disadvantage depending on who you play. So I think for me, the Pouliot is one of those guns where it's best paired with an SMG that's kind of more of a sniper support design, so that you don't have so the problem with SMGs, right? Most SMGs die off at like 10, between that 10 and 15 meter range, right? Which is great when you're close quarters, but like think about pushing like Chemical in Rebirth Island, right? Somebody's at the far end of Chemical and you're pushing them with a close range SMG, you're not going to get the win. You're going to get killed before you can close the gap and fight them, right? And there's a lot of buildings in there's a lot of scenarios in Urzikstan in which you aren't going to necessarily be able to close the gap enough for your mobility SMGs to be useful, right? So you need to fight that mid range. But if you're running the Pouliot, you're going to be generally too slow to avoid somebody just beaming the crap out of you or getting sniped in the face. And so I think the best solution, I think the Pouliot is going to match well with a more sniper support SMG. I think the Striker is going to be a good. You're going to see I think people will pull the Sniper and the Pouliot a lot because the Striker is good in close range and it's good in that kind of shallow mid range. So you're able to really fight that battle, and then at the same time you can then pull out the long range and you can beam somebody across the field and rip their head off that way without and it's good for challenging snipers too. And you've got 100 rounds by default, so you can just pump rounds down range.
Well, and you mentioned the Striker, so that's what I'm seeing a lot of people running in scrims and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And it's okay. I tried to run it for a few matches, and I swapped back to the static. The fire rate on the static just still seems a little bit better for me. I prefer the static. I really miss the Superior, to be honest. Like, that was probably the best, to me, the most fun SMG to run in this iteration of Warzone.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's just not used. You should not be running the Superior at this point.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely not running the Superior at this point. The static SMG is what I'm running with that Jack Slash attachment.
Sleepers, though, sleeper guns are going to be the Rival 9 is there. We might see the Shroud might have a shot at being useful if you build it right. With the Shroud is a Modern Warfare 2 MP5 with the conversion kit.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so close range is going to be a lot of options, right? I think there's a lot of good choices. The Horus is going to be good. The BP-50 is good, right? And so I think it depends on how you're going to play the game. But, the meta's opened up a little bit. I think they did a good job of not ruining the STG. Like we've seen in the past, right, where they just destroy the gun, where it's like there's no point in even touching it.
Yeah.
And then the AR is definitely going. The LMGs are definitely going to be a little more prominent. The Eradicator I think is good too. It has a very flat damage range. I don't think it has a drop off, but it has that weird like fire rate that slows down, so it starts out like right, and so
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't like that. It takes some adjusting to, but it's also one of those things that like when you get used to it, it's a very effective gun, right? It's definitely something you should pick up on ground loot and learn to use effectively. But yeah, otherwise, I mean, aside from that and a few other changes, like it's just not a lot going on. Some bug fixes for a reloaded update. It was very quiet. Especially on the big map. We had 2 weapons. They're both kind of useless for most people, unless you're Crossbow Mike, in which case the spear is going to be his new thing. I do wish they would do a caveman mode where it's only spears and bow and arrow.
May as well.
I think that'd be fun.
Did you see? So Iceman Isaac had a pretty good tweet. I'm trying to find it right now. Give me just a second, and I will pull it up. But he had a really good tweet about the weapon balancing. And I would really like to know what their philosophy is as far as like when it comes to weapon balancing. I don't think they've ever really said. God damn, why can't I find this fucking tweet, dude? Jesus.
Warzone weapon balancing needs to change. Every season has 2 or 3 dominant weapons, and everything else is far behind. Matters with strict SBMM. Then we get inconsequential updates where they change the damage range on random guns by 4 meters. Horribly stale and boring. Yes.
Yeah. I don't know why I couldn't find that. I fucking retweeted it and I still couldn't find it.
Google foo is low.
Evidently. It is Saturday morning. It is, but like just in general, and I know why they do it, as far as like the whole meta thing, which I've come to grips with that. It is what it is. That's never going to change. As long as we have loadouts like we have, there is always going to be a meta. People don't want the randomness of a traditional BR. So we're going to have a meta. But what doesn't make sense, and we've talked about this several times to me, is you have like, how many weapons are there right now? There's got to be like 75 weapons at least.
Oh, there's more than that because you had 50 at launch. You had 51 and 36, and we've added there's at least 100 weapons right now, probably more.
It's silly to me that to go through and have all that amount of weapons. And only 3 or 4 of them, if that, are viable and used. Like when you start looking at what the probable pick rate is, it's going to be in the 90 percentile. I guarantee it. But like, I just wish that they would do a thing where kind of how it was. And I think they actually had it right in Warzone 1 for this. The AMAX was a higher recoil weapon, but if you could control it and hit shots, you were rewarded with a little more damage, right?
Yeah.
The Kilo, on the other hand, was a weapon with not much recoil. It had a decent damage. Fire rate, but you weren't getting the same amount of damage that you would get with like the AMAX or even the Cold War AK, right? Like that was kind of another one. It was a risk reward thing. I wish that they would treat the weapons that way. And stop selling blueprints and start selling cosmetics for the guns, so that way it's just cosmetic and then the guns can be what they are in the game. But
I will say this: it's nice that they've talked about how blueprints going forwards, the cosmetics on the blueprints will work, like won't get wiped out when you swap parts. So I think that's supposed to be in Black Ops, in the Black Ops guns. That's supposed to do that.
It's gonna be awesome.
That's going to be a huge help because then it's like I don't have to, I can look at whether I like the gun look or not on whether I want to, spend money on it. So I think that's a W, and that should alleviate a lot of the issues because you can then buy a gun for you can buy a bundle and enjoy the cosmetic look of it without having to mess around with the skins of it. I mean, the problem is for me, like I grind camos, so it's like I don't want your weird shit on on the gun. I want to show off something I just worked for, right? Like most of my camos are all earned and they're not bought. So, but I know a lot of people like some of the guys that I used to play with, like they don't play enough to unlock everything, so they do buy bundles for the meta guns for the express purpose, so they don't have to spend the time on it. So,
well, that's why they do it.
Yeah, but I think what we need, but I think you're right. We need to go. I want to go back to the period in time in which, a gun could be far and away from everything better for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks tops, and then they reel it back in, right? Like I'm okay with that, and it's like it's moving constantly. This whole idea of like something's going to be like the top gun for 2 months, 3 months at a time has got it like that. That's frustrating to me because I don't want to say it's pandering. Pandering is not the right word, but it's definitely tilting the game to help the lower time invested players, right? So they don't have to grind new stuff constantly. And I think, I don't enjoy that as much, right? There was a period during Cold War going into Vanguard where it was like there were probably 5 or 6 different guns that were all equally viable in different ways, right? In different hands. And they were all ARs, ARs or LMGs. And so it was like, you had so many choices. I mean, right now we're kind of, and then Vanguard had like the SMG meta, right? You had like, I think there was at one point, there were 5 solid SMGs.
Yeah,
and you couldn't be wrong. Others. Yeah, you had Type 100, you had the Blixen, you had the Armor Guerrera, you had, oh God, I can't remember half of them anymore. But like, you had so many options. And depending on your playstyle, there were even Cold War and Modern Warfare 2 SMGs that could handle, right? Like they could hang. And so you had so many choices, right? And your playstyle and how you wanted to approach the fight, you could really lean into that into your choice and pick the one that was best for you. And right now it's like you have to change your playstyle on what's meta, because if you bring the wrong gun to a gunfight, you're just going to get deleted.
Well, and I don't like the idea that people who don't spend time on the game are more or less rewarded. I mean, if you look at it, they're more or less rewarded. To me, it's everybody gets a trophy mentality. Because if you remember back in the day in the old school Call of Duties, if you didn't have a gun because you didn't unlock it, hey, guess what? Tough shit. And Call of Duty grew. Did it not? It grew during then. But now it's like, oh my God, Tim from accounting's not going to have the fucking the goddamn static. I need to make sure and put 16 fucking bundles in there, and let's leave it for meta for goddamn 3 months. Like,
I don't even mind them putting the bundles in. I don't even mind them putting the bundles in. You know why? Because it'll keep Tim from accounting playing, and he's got the money to spend on the bundles every 3 weeks, right? It's if he wants to, and he doesn't want to actually play the game, he wants to buy his way in. It doesn't give you an advantage, right? It allows Tim from accounting to keep playing the game, and I'm all for that, right? We need the Tims from look. If we don't have Tim from accounting playing the game, it's gonna be a sweat fest for everybody at every level, because there won't be the people that aren't experienced that don't have that. They just will stop playing, right? And so I'm all for them doing things to keep Tim from accounting in the game, so that we can kill Tim from accounting from time to time. Okay, I mean SBMM aside, but the problem with the way that they're doing it is that they're just letting it sit so that Tim from accounting, I mean, they're not even forcing him to buy bundles on repeat, right? They're just like, they want to get Tim and Susan and Bob and the entire accounting department, get them in their time playing, so they all buy the bundle. And that's the problem is, right? Like you and I who log an absurd amount of time in this game, right?
Because we're addicts.
And everybody else who are addicts, AKA our listeners, welcome. We're playing the game so much that it's like we've logged more time with this gun than Tim from accounting has logged for the entire season. Okay, like we've like or the entire year, right? Like we've logged, and so for us, it's kind of like we're ready to move on, and the game isn't giving us anything to move on to, right? It's just another season of the same gun, and eventually, probably, by about the halfway point, they will have nerfed it. Probably right after. My prediction is right after the beta is over. They will make some adjustments. So that the World Series of Warzone people get screwed for that for that. But it'll be, by that time it'll be like, all right, there'll be a new gun coming up, right? So they'll nerf it so that we'll have like a week of like, oh, you can pick different things, and then all of a sudden, oh, there's a new meta gun, and that'll run it through the end of the year.
Yeah,
and it's not enough.
I will contend that when there is variety, the game is better. When you can pretty much run, and I've always actually performed better on the game whenever I've been able to run whatever I want, and everybody's not running the same damn thing for whatever reason. I really wish that we could go back towards like Verdansk style weapon balancing. Again, I've told you the story, dude. I wiped the whole squad with a kilo, and they were all running the fucking hog.
Yeah.
So I would like to go back to that. I don't know that we ever will. But yeah, like I just want balance, man. I want and variety and choices.
I want variety. I like the variety. I like, and this is a me thing, so I don't know how many other people do it. Subscribe to this ideology, but I like to constantly be like changing things up, right? Like, all right, I get comfortable with something, I get really settled with it, and then I get bored of it. I'm like, all right, I want to do something different. And so, so much of Warzone 1 and even last year there were so many guns that were just underutilized that nobody messed with and played with, that you could delve in and find the hidden gems, right? The little things that were like, all right, in certain situations, this gun is good and it's fun, right? Like the Lockman 7.62 is unwieldy and insane, right? But if you built it and you used it right, it actually was really, really good. It was like one of the best guns in the game for a long time, but nobody would touch it because it was like a battle rifle, right? And, it had so much crazy recoil that, using it beyond 30 meters was just impossible. But if you could control it and you used it as more of like a sniper support, where you didn't try to fight outside 20 meters, that thing destroyed everybody, right? And so I remember I was running with a couple of guys. I think Lethal was running with Lethal and somebody else from Team Involved in a ranked game, and I'm like, try this build, right? It's a lot of fun. And they threw it on, and it was like they were just dropping bodies left and right. I mean, I just remember this one guy was like running, and I just like, bah, 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 and he was down so fast. It was he couldn't believe it. I was laughing my head off because I could believe it, because I've been running that gun for a little bit. But it was just such an absurd gun. And it was like there was definitely a point where it's like you hit like 28, 29 meters, and the spread was so wild. It's like you're just not hitting any bullets. You'll put the entire mag down range, and you get, you're going to get one bullet on target. But, you get into that 15-meter gunfight, right? And as long as you can control it just enough, it didn't matter where you hit the guy, right? You're just smoking them immediately. And so there's nothing like that here. There's just nothing like that anymore, right? There's the meta, and then there's the almost meta, and then everything else is just a liability.
I want the battle rifles to be good, man. Like I like the semi-auto stuff. Like I like the Interceptor or
those. I mean the marksman rifles, traditional marksman rifles.
Yeah.
Battle rifles they should get rid of, and they should just be ARs. That's stupid.
Yeah, it's the marksman rifles. Like the EBR back in Verdansk was my jam, dude. Like I really liked that. I know people are gonna probably want to fucking get the pitchforks out, but the DMR meta is probably my favorite meta, just because I like the semi-auto stuff, dude. Like I really do.
You sir can get out.
Dude, you run like broken ass, like 2-shot fucking shotguns and snake shots and everything else, bro. You sir know better than me. All
right, fine. I accept.
But yeah, hopefully it'll be more balanced. Like, so if what I'm hearing is correct, they're vaulting everything when we move over, transition into Black Ops 6.
I don't think so.
I think they're going to.
You think so? You think in Warzone? Mm-hmm. I know that they were specific that in multiplayer they're not carrying over again. So we're multiplayer resets, right? Good experiment. I'm glad they did it. Didn't work. I don't think it's good. but I didn't hear that for Warzone. So if you know
I
more
have.
than I do,
Yeah, I have. I don't know that that's gospel, but that's just what I've heard. So
okay.
that would be. I think that could maybe change how things are done a little bit. But I mean, we'll
Hmm.
see.
We'll
We've
see.
heard a lot of shit. So
Yeah.
who? I mean, honestly, who
Yeah.
knows? Who knows?
And you know what? And we know they've been prone to make decisions late and
Yeah.
change their mind on stuff. So
Well,
no.
okay. So look at Warzone 2, right? We started out Warzone 2. There were no loadouts. No
Hmm.
loadouts the first probably 6 weeks. Everybody complained about it, and then we got loadouts. Like so yeah, they can switch gears. From what they originally intended, but
Yeah.
hopefully they learned their lesson from doing all that, and we continue on the path that we're on now because the game is in a better state right now than it was, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
When it's not 11% packet loss, it's in a better state. I agree.
Yeah,
It's been
yeah, for sure.
11% for me a lot lately, but when it's not, it's good. I've been enjoying
Yeah,
it. But yeah, it's good. I hope. All right, I'm gonna. So I know we talked about bringing this in, and this is something that I've never heard them bringing in specifically, but I think it's a must. We have to bring this in, and that's having like the ability to tune our audio in game, right? Like so I just did a series on this week, this past week, put the last one out yesterday, about kind of audio and looking at different aspects of audio in the game. But it infuriates me that they don't have it where you can go in and kind of tune it in game, right? They give you presets that are not ideal. And it's so funny because when you dig into it, like they want the audio to sound good, but they're designing it for like a big, surround home theater system. Like that's what the audio is designed for. It's designed for you to be in your living room on your console, like playing on your TV with your, with $1,200 worth of audio equipment stacked under your Xbox. Like that's what this audio is. That's who it's designed for, right? And the rest of us are picking up scraps. And I want so instead of having like the presets like PC speaker or home theater, right? We have those drop downs that we can pick from or headphones, right? It's just changing the mix, right? Like it's just presets on their mix. Um, they need to give us the option to EQ it ourselves.
that would be. I think that would be pretty awesome. And I mean, sound makes a difference. And the first game I haven't told you this, but the first game that I ever actually noticed the sound being like the directional sound being a thing was Rainbow Six Siege. Like playing
Mm-hmm.
Rainbow Six, and how quiet everything is. It's a little bit of a slower paced game, so you're hearing footsteps and this and that, people stepping on glass, all that stuff. That was where I really started to notice a difference and just why sound was important in the game.
Yeah.
And then like I told you the other day, when I got my very first it wasn't Turtle Beaches. I noticed that was pretty good. But when I got the Astro A40s, when Jason sent those to me, the very first game, I'm going down this slope and I hear what sounds like somebody stepping on or moving on a few blades of grass.
Uh-huh.
And sure as shit, I look over and there's a dude laying there, and I'm like, holy fuck! I did not hear that with Turtle Beaches. Like there was a
Yeah.
definite quality difference, and that's because of the mix amp and being able to go into the Astros amp or Astros app and adjust your audio, your EQ to a certain degree.
Yeah. Well, so I never had Warzone 1, I never had a problem with the audio. I never had a problem with directional audio in Warzone 1 and knowing where people were. But I didn't wear headphones. I played without headphones. I just had like one of the little over ear, comm hookups
Mm-hmm.
I think I played with the original. I actually played with the original Xbox One version of that for a long time because
Mm-hmm.
it was super crisp and easy to hear the comms on. But I had $1,800 sunk into my home theater in our last house. I had 7.2. Actually, I had two subwoofers. I had 7.2 surround that was digitally tuned to the spot that I sat in on the couch, and it was phenomenal. Right, like I didn't have a problem hearing anybody. Right, And so it wasn't until I moved to out here where my living room went from like 14 feet by 28 feet or whatever it was. It was huge space with in-wall speakers and just amazing, high-end in-wall speakers and a great receiver and all of this stuff that played the audio so well into a much small. Our living room is now much smaller and it's open. It's half open, so there's like all the sound just vanishes into the house. The ceiling is a weird shape because the 90s was terrible for architecture. Interior design was awful. And so stuff reflects weird. It is not a good sound stage. It is not the kind of room you want to listen to. And so I started having to go and get back what I had with headphones. And it's like I've gone through. I still have, I think, at least 8 pairs of high-end headphones here, and they're all shit.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
You, sir, are a fucking electronics hoarder. Between your headphones, all the shit, like, dude. I mean, does wifey know how much money you're spending on all this shit, dude? I'm assuming not.
If I die, please tell her to look stuff up before she Goodwills it.
Yeah.
Same goes for my firearms collection. Please tell her to look it up and not trust what I told her it cost. But yeah, but I've gone through the, it's this progression of like, all right, I bought a pair of headphones, you'd plug them into your controller and, it was okay. And then it was just like, it's all, and so it's been this progression of trying to solve the problem. And and I never bothered to look into the details of headphones. And it turns out gaming headphones are really shit, right? They're really shitty headphones. All of them. They're all bad for Warzone. Every last one of them. And if you think they're good for Warzone, they're not. Okay. Here's the problem, right? Is the gaming experience, these headphones have to be designed to work for a variety of games. And a lot of games, like they're enjoyable, especially single player games, right? They're enjoyable when you have things like base response, when when you fire a missile and it rumbles, right? You get that explosion and you can feel it in your toes because the whole house shakes, right? Like that's how we watch movies. Okay. We watch movies where it's like, if you watch Top Gun and you don't have a subwoofer and you don't have that like heavy bass presence, when a jet flies over your head, it's just kind of like, and you're like, okay, that's nice. Versus like when you have a full blown home theater and it's like roars overhead and, the walls shake and your neighbor complains, right? Like, that's how movies should be. It's like you go to the movie theater. That's how you experience movies in the movie theater, right? And gaming headsets are trying to recreate that, which is great for cinematic style games. Like I'll bet, if you listen to Wukong, that new game or, Elder Scrolls or, these other games that are more cinematic in their design, like gaming headsets probably work okay, right? But for Call of Duty, like they're terrible. And the reason why they're terrible, and here's why they're terrible. And there's a site you can go to. I put it in one of my videos, and I'll try and link to it after this podcast for anybody listening. That it's called Squiglink, and what they've basically done is they map the response curve, the native response curve of headsets, right? And so they have pretty much everything that you would buy right now on there, and you can see the curve of like what's emphasized and what's not emphasized, right? What's de-emphasized. And you can, and then there's a guy called Gadgetry Tech. And what he's done is he's gone through and he's actually mapped the response or the ideal curve for Warzone, right? And you can overlay them and you can see what headset looks good, works compared to that. And I think I was looking at, what was I looking at for you? Something.
We looked at Razors. We looked at
there's a couple of them, and it's like
the Astros,
and they just,
A40s,
the A40s, and they all overblow the bass noise, right? So most people who just plug in a gaming headset are going to get so much bass in the game that they don't hear anything else. Like and that's been something I've been dealing with. It's like you just can't hear anything, and so if you go on this app, it'll tell you how to tune your EQ so that you can return the bass, you can return the sound profile to where it should be, right? And you can hear the game the way it should be. and it makes such a huge difference. And so it's kind of like this whole process of trying to solve this, this audio problem. And the reality is, if they just give us a 10 band EQ, kind of like we can get with the Dolby app on Xbox, and just give us that, and most people can get the game sounding the way they intended pretty easily, right? Like you just, they could even, they could literally like make presets for different headphones and put it in the, like all the popular headphones and put it in there, but they're not going to, because that's a lot of work. And that's a database they'd have to keep up. But if they just gave us like the 10-man EQ, there would be hundreds of people that would make custom tunes for you, like per headphone. And it's like, it's wild how many, how much of a difference it makes, right?
Right.
It
And
is.
you mentioned that this is not just for PC. While we're both on PC, like you can also go in and adjust your audio for Xbox as well,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, you can, so on Xbox, it's a $15, thanks to inflation, $15 app. Essentially, it was on sale for me for like $12. So I bought the license for the living room. And it opens up Dolby Atmos, since you can have that going. Which actually made my soundbar sound really, sounds really good watching a movie. Even in my shitty little sound-wise shitty living room. But the audio that we hear, like if you just plug a headset in, like some random headset, the audio you hear is not the intended audio. It's not how it's supposed to sound, right? Like it's just not. And it's frustrating to me that they don't give us the tools to do that natively, and that we have to kind of search these other ways. But I think it really does. It does make a difference. It's made a huge difference for me, for being able to hear people. Whether I win the gunfight or not is irrelevant. At least I know the gunfight's coming.
If you don't, they're cheating. So
obviously, absolutely, every one of them.
Yeah. No, I'm
But
kidding.
but it's that's a feature that I really want to see, like them give us, right? Because the presets. If you look it up, when they released 2019, they actually did a blog post on audio and on the different presets and what they're doing, and it's like they give they show you the curve of what all these are, and I don't think it's the same exactly that we have now, but it's pretty close. And there's definitely some balancing in there that can help, but it's so obvious that it's designed for a home theater and it's not designed for gaming headsets. And it's so unfortunate that most of us don't know, like don't even know that, right? Like we think that we're getting the audio the way they want us to hear it. Like we plug our headset in, all right, this is how we should hear it. And it's like,
right.
You're not even on the right kind of headset, right? And it's so, it's one of the reasons that I've switched to the IAMs, and it's like I just want to listen on that. I don't even want to listen to through a headset anymore. Like I was doing my videos, and I was switching between the A40s and the IEMs, and at one point I had one IEM in and then my headset over top of it, right? And I was just the sheer difference of how the same thing sounded through both simultaneously was night and day. It was unbelievable, and all I was doing was switching what I was listening to.
Yeah, I switched to IEMs maybe a month ago, maybe a month and a half, something like that, and I'm not going to go back to headset either. I like the IEMs. These, which you got the same pair, I believe.
Comes in later today.
Yep. So they've got the like 4 sliders on each side where you can adjust that, and I had to toy with it and get my audio right. And I still don't think I have it dialed in kind of the way it should be, but it's pretty damn good as it is. Like, I don't really, especially since I went to the Astros, and I'm still running the mix amp, by the way. I'm still running that, but I don't have the audio issues. But the other thing to think about too is Call of Duty is not the only game that has audio issues. I got friends that play Apex that complain about the audio there all the time too. And it's got to be really complicated to try to optimize your audio for previous gen consoles, current gen consoles, 85,000 different configurations of PCs. Like, that's got to be a damn
It's
nightmare to try
impossible.
to do
It's
that.
impossible. But that's what they do. Is like they mix it for like what is the best possible setup you could have, and that's what they design it for. And then it just kind of it's like a funnel of like quality that goes down until you land on where you're at.
But I think you're onto something about an in-game EQ. I think that takes away a lot of the issue right there.
Yeah.
Like if you're able to do an in-game EQ, I think that eliminates a lot of the issues as far as like, trying to make sure everything's optimized for all the different things, right? Just do that. Like I think that's a freaking great feature. We're probably never going to get it. I mean, unless you can convince Activision that they could sell it and make money on it, they'd probably put it in there. But
it's a bundle.
Other than that, yeah, we're not going to get
EQ
it.
bundle.
Yeah, sell a fucking.
They'll sell the tunings for every headset, right? Oh, you have the Razer Pro, the Razer Pro Shark tuning bundle. That'll be 1,800 COD points. Here you go. You know what?
Yeah.
Though, it would be worth it if that's what they did. You know what? It would be the dirtiest cash grab ever. But for the people that bought it, I guarantee they'd be like, oh, it's worth it, right? Like skip the Nicki Minaj 3.0 bundle and get that instead, and you'll actually get above your like 0.3 KD. And the problem is the people that need it would never buy it. They'll buy the Nicki Minaj again, right? And then they'll wonder why they died to somebody who can who is buying it and they can hear it. And I think that's the biggest problem, right? Is like the people refuse to use is the biggest problem that I've run into with people. The tools are in front of them and they refuse to use them, right? And it's not like saying and it's not like something like, oh, I'm not installing cheats, right? I'm not putting engine owning on my system, right? That's different. This is the tool. The developers give us the tools. They're there for us to use. We just have to do it. And people refuse to do it, right? Like they refuse to touch the tools in front of them, and then they wonder why that they're not getting the advantage.
Well, and audio, like people like you were just saying, like just as far as like there are people who will go through and make the choice to use the tools in front of them, right? Mm-hmm. And then somebody doesn't, and they go up against somebody who does, and they're like, oh, they're cheating. It's like, well, no, they fucking heard you from 100 meters away that way. That's how they knew you were there. They weren't cheating. Yeah. They just heard you.
Well, and it's like, I ran one where I ran a clip earlier this week on Twitter of like, I was pushing out of a building in Urzikstan, and there was, kind of like, the kind of near where the train is on the northern end of the train line. And there was a group, I could hear footsteps, and then I could hear the train go by, and I could hear that the footsteps in the train were close together, so I knew where they were, right? And I turn and I run up and I look that direction. Sure enough, I can see him over there, and it was like and I pushed it, and I'm like, this is just part of the mix, and the reason I could hear it is that all of this noise, like all of the extra noise, wasn't being emphasized by my headset, the way it normally does, right? And it was like, oh yeah, it works. Shocking.
Well, it's like you said, though, it's not adding, it's taking away, right? It's taking away all the extra clutter and bullshit that's really not necessary.
And that's not that's not supposed to be there in the way that it is, right? Like there's so much noise that's added to the game. And it's like, I want to unadd, like, I just want the ability to like not have I want the ability to have the volume up on the stuff that's important enough that when there's stuff that's not important, my eardrums don't explode from the noise, right? Like I don't need to hear an airstrike 180 yards away, deafening everything around me, right? It shouldn't be that way, but with the way the audio works, most gaming headsets, that's what they emphasize. They emphasize the explosions and the jets and all that other stuff. And it's like, and it's a headset maker problem as much as it is anything else.
Right. Well, and when you got 35 fucking airstrikes going over your head, and there's some kind of audio glitch right now where it's like a constant airstrike at certain points where like you're just hearing them repeatedly going for like a minute or so. Like that's kind of annoying. So anyway, guys, Sub One has got some great content. He's released 3 videos this week. They're about 17 to 18 minutes long.
Sorry
They're
for the
also
length.
going to be on his YouTube channel, correct?
They're up.
So they are up on his YouTube channel. I recommend you guys take a listen. Make sure you give him a like over there on his YouTube channel. And it could be beneficial to people, especially for console players.
Yeah, I do have one specifically for console. So, I'm happy to like delve into more. And I'm happy to delve into more of what the tunes are, like what I'm doing in those tunes, if that's an issue. Like if people have questions, like look, this is, if you haven't figured out right now, this is what I do. I like to learn everything I can about something and then tell everybody who will listen and then people who don't care everything I know, because that's how I enjoy life. So
he's the fucking nerd of this podcast. That's all I'm gonna say.
What are you saying?
I'm just kidding.
But I will tell you what didn't sound good, and I had to listen to it back. I had actually listened to it on without it. Was trying to listen. I tried to listen to the Black Ops Zombies trailer with Call of Duty tuning. It sounded terrible.
Did it really?
Oh, it sounded trash. It sounded better on my phone than it did on my gaming PC. So
wow.
So definitely very specific tunings. But I watched the Black Ops Zombies trailer. I don't know if you've seen that yet.
I did.
But it's fun. The trailer looks fun. So it's definitely. It looks like it could be interesting. I don't love the round-based zombies modes, right? I like the kind of open. I'm more of an open world player than I am like a round-based survival player. But the door's open. Like win me over, convince me I'm wrong in zombies. The trailer was good. I thought it was fun. The concept seemed exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I may check it out briefly. The zombies. We've mentioned this. I liked the open world concept for the zombies. I'm not a true zombie player, but maybe I'll check it out. I don't know. It's never really been a big deal to me. I know my kid likes it. We have some other friends that like it. I thought the trailer was pretty cool. The cinematics are always going to be pretty cool. So
yeah,
they do a good job with that stuff.
They do. And so we'll see how, I don't know, reveals coming up. We have COD Next coming up next week, next Wednesday. So we should see that. Kind of excited for it. We also saw they teased the new Warzone map, which somehow slid under the radar for everybody, right? Like there was no talk that I saw, no leaks, no rumors about a new Warzone map. We saw Avalon, which we know is not it, right?
Yeah, Avalon and then parts of Verdansk, sure, but not this.
I didn't know. So
I didn't know any.
This is the second time they've done it. Second time they've done this. Now they managed to keep it under wraps, right? Because it was Fortune's Keep. They revealed it, and nobody knew Fortune's Keep was coming when they did that. So I'm curious now. The rumor that I've heard. So the rumor that was widely spread yesterday, I think yesterday, was that they were going to replace Rebirth Island with this new map, which I think would be a catastrophe. Like talk about angering your player base to do that. But I can see them giving it like a week or so of like, hey, Resurgence is going to be on the new map. Everybody has to play it, right? And then they go back to some form of rotation.
Why don't they just call it Resurgence Zone? Jesus, like. You already go 2 seasons with the big map not getting anything. Now, we have Pop-Off now is now green. Pop-Off is now green, and we got Superstore. Cool.
Which nobody
I'm
drops.
happy.
Superstore is not as hot as it should be, right? It's not the hot drop.
No, not really.
It's like maybe one other team there, and they're not. It's Superstore used to be like the best, sweatiest players in the game went Superstore every time. Like if you wanted to go back to the lobby immediately, drop Superstore, because even if you were 1v1, you were probably getting smoked. Now it's like, there's like 1, maybe 2 teams drop, and they're all mixed skilled. It's not as exciting.
But I think that it is going to be a Resurgence map. It's just crazy to me how we've pushed off getting a new map. So now we're going to be on Urzikstan. I mean, unless they've got some other like big POI changes coming between now and then, I feel like we're just big map BR is just again getting ignored. I don't understand why. Because I mean the player count's probably got to be pretty decent. I know that I'm not having like long queue times to get into matches.
I wonder. You know what would be cool? It would be cool to see on like some of the bigger maps, such as Fortune's Keep is a bigger small map, right? It's definitely bigger than Rebirth Island. It's bigger. It's a bigger map.
Yeah.
I would like to see Mini Royale on those maps, right? I think that would be fun. Like that would be a fun mode to play, where it's like it's a Mini Royale experience. It's not Rebirth, right? It's not Resurgence. But it's on, but it's got that 45 player ish, 45, 50 player count, right? You have a gulag, you have all that stuff. They did that for a while. And then it went away. Because where was the what map was the gulag in? It was a Mini Royale in, what map did they do that in? Remind me, I don't remember. But it was a different gulag. They gave us the original gulag, if you recall.
It was Vondel.
Vondel, yeah, they did on
Yeah,
Vondel.
they did
I thought it worked really well on Vondel. I enjoyed BR on Vondel. I want to see that again as like a permanent thing, right? Like I do appreciate. I'll say this: I do appreciate that the turn time on games is slower, or I mean is faster, in Mini Royale modes and in Resurgence, right? Like you're 15 minutes, you're done, right? If you go all the way through 15 minutes, you're done. On Mini Royale, and you get into more gunfights, even if it's Mini Royale, you tend to see more gunfights than you do on a full blown big map. And so, over the course of an hour, you get to run more games, more reps in. If you're aggressive, you can still get into more gunfights, right? Versus with big map where you tend to have more spread in the zones. I just, I don't not like it, right? And in certain scenarios where it's like I don't want to spend a ton of time, or I'm running with randos or something like that, having the smaller BR experience to me is more is a little bit more relaxing. It's an enjoyment.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's what that map is going to be, and
that would be cool. Like that would be a good holdover for me between Black Ops 6 dropping and us getting a new actual big map. Like I would accept that. And you know what would be interesting? What if they did ranked on that? Mini Royale ranked.
Still don't. So that's actually what I was gonna say is that's the one thing that I want right now more than anything else is ranked play on the big map. Like I want ranked play on the big map. Like I don't understand the thought process behind not having ranked on both like immediately. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me, especially when the community had been asking for a ranked mode for so long since we were on Verdansk. And then they finally give it to us for about 6 months on Al Mazrah, and then they yanked the rug out from underneath us, and they're like, "Yep, nope, you're not going to have it right now for Urzikstan." And then they yanked the rug again, and they're like, "Oh, ranked is now Resurgence." And it's funny because a lot of the people that were running big map ranked went and ran that, got into the top 250, those kind of things, and they were over it in like less than a month, dude.
Yeah.
And I mean, even Teep, I see him playing it now. But at one point he was like, "Dude, I don't think I'm ever going to touch this again."
They just added, all they did is they ported over the regular ranked experience and they added like a death penalty, which I think is stupid in Resurgence. Yeah. If you want a death penalty, put it in the big map one, right? Where it's like that's kind of the point of the map is not to die, right? But like you look at I look at Resurgence ranked, and it's like the scoring, like the way they score it's the antithesis of a Resurgence mode, right? Like you're not supposed to be penalized for dying. You're supposed to be able to come back, right? Because you were aggressive, because you got into gunfights, right? So to penalize people for that, I think they should have taken more cues from how tournaments were run in Warzone 1 and applied that, where it's like, you get X number of, you get points for kills, right? But those points are multiplied by your placement, right? So it's like the placement ranking is a little more granular. And so, people that drop in and just kind of like are able to get their loadout and farm some people early, right? And play aggressive in the early game are rewarded just as much, for being aggressive early, getting some early kills, and then making it late in the game, right? Versus right now where it's kind of like, you could drop in early and do nothing for a little while, and at least through like the mid ranks, right? Crimson and Iridescent, you just have to frag the entire lobby or you're going negative. But
pretty much,
if you're in like gold and you're in platinum and even into early diamond, right? Like, if you're aggressive early, the risk reward, I don't know if it's entirely there versus, being aggressive late where the kills count more, right? You need more kills late game than you do early game because you get more points for it, right? Versus if it was just a straight placement multiplier where it's like, oh, okay, I got, 10 kills and 8 of them were in the early game, but I somehow survived until the final, until the top 10 teams, right? Because other people are fragging out and the lobby's dying off, right? Like that, I get rewarded for making it late, but I'm also being rewarded for my early work in the game, right? Versus now where it's like you're just not rewarded for early work in the game as much. It's like, you get 5 points for a kill or assist early and 3 points for dying.
I don't
versus
even know,
late
dude.
game where it's like 15 points for a kill and 3 points for dying. Like there's the risk reward for getting into gunfights early isn't there. And that to me doesn't feel like a resurgence mode.
I don't even know because I've played that. I think I played ranked for like 2 matches or something like that over there with my kid once. I don't have any interest in it, man.
We should definitely play so that I can get your lobbies. And that will help me.
Maybe it will. I'll be your fucking 2 box, invite me and then I'll just leave or whatever.
Oh man. We can't leave in rank. It cancels it. Like,
yeah.
But it's like, yeah. So I don't know. I want big rank to come back on the big map. Big map ranked to come back.
That's all I'll play. Is that. And I like the ranked mode because it takes out a lot of the cheese. It's played differently than pubs or whatever, and
mm-hmm.
the matchmaking is what it should be. In ranked. I mean, up until you get up into diamond and you're running into top 250 people, dude.
Yeah.
It just
you get to a point where it's like you just
get
slammed by top 250s and high levels. I mean, and that's just a player count issue, right? There just aren't enough. I mean, you can't put top 250 players against top 250 players because you won't even fill the lobby, right? Like you'll never fill a lobby.
Well, yeah, because they're not all playing at the same time and stuff like that. And so I understand that. But that's why I get frustrated when it happens in pubs. It's like, what the fuck? Like, if there's way more casuals than there are good players, why the fuck am I consistently running into like these types of players? Like, this shit shouldn't be happening. But that's another thing. But as far as like this,
that's its own episode.
I will check out this new map. I'm gonna check it out at least. I'll run it a few times. But yeah, I mean, I'm not overly excited. I'm really not overly excited about it. And unless they show some stuff at next that gets me fired up, I'm just kind of indifferent about it, to be honest.
Yeah. But while we wait and, as things come on, there's other games out, we're actually kind of having a good selection of options outside of Call of Duty that aren't too far off base. Right. And so it's been so I got into the alpha for Delta Force. I've been playing that a little bit. So it used to be Delta Force Hawk Ops. Which, good Lord, that was a mouthful to say. They finally cut that down. It's just Delta Force now, which is basically a Battlefield clone. Like, it's not a COD clone. It's a Battlefield clone. But from hearing from True Game Data and a few others, and from playing it, they took a lot from Call of Duty and what Call of Duty is doing. So it's kind of like they took a lot of fundamentals from Call of Duty, put them into a Battlefield environment, and then added their own extraction shooter to it, which is super interesting.
You think they'll have a BR?
No. No, I think they'll stay with the extraction shooter, which is fine because it has the battlefield mode, right? And I think that's a big problem with a lot of games is that they're singular focused. They have one mode, and you play that mode until you're tired of it, and then it's like, and then you take a break, right? And I think that's what COD does so well is that there's so many modes that you can play. If you are tired of getting slammed in Warzone, you can switch to Resurgence, and when that, and if you're not having fun there, you can go play zombies, and if you're not having fun there, you can go play multiplayer and 18 different versions of multiplayer. And it's like there's something for everybody at every point in time, right? So like I think that's one of the reasons COD stays on top is that there are so many different types of people who play the game, and there's something for them, right? Versus like X Defiant, which came out with a lot of press, and where's that, right? It's not, it's got a core player base that are really enjoying the game, which is great, which is good for the game and good for them, but I don't see a lot of people jumping in and like just playing the game full time. It's like, oh, I'll play it here and play it a little bit here, play it a little bit there. That's kind of what I'm doing, a little bit here, a little bit there. I'm not playing it too much. And that I think is, because it's just multiplayer. It's just 6v6 multiplayer.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't even play this like Modern Warfare 3 multiplayer as much as I probably should. I don't even play that often. So for me, I like X Defiant. I like the theory behind it. I like the mechanics of obviously it has some issues just like any other game, right? Like there's certain things they got to fix, and I know they're working on it. To me, the biggest thing and why I want that game to succeed is because I want them to be able to show that you don't have to have this crazy ass protective and predatory matchmaking to do well. So and I know based on my experience in that game that it can be done. It can be fun. My problem is I don't want to play that's a game I don't really want to play by myself. Right?
Yeah.
Like, and I've got my friends are doing other things, right? Like some of us are playing golf. I got people that are back on Diablo, and running that and stuff like that. So I'm not going to log on and play that by myself for a long period of time. If I'm going to play by myself, I'll just go play solos in Warzone.
Yeah.
And have a good time.
And that's one of those things of like, the 6v6 just requires a certain mindset and a certain play style. And it's kind of like in that game, the more I play it, the more it's obviously designed for teamwork, right? Between the different abilities and the different like things, like teams that stack and play together dominate. Like, even if you're doing it with randos, right? And it's so hard as a solo to drop in and like pick that up. And so, for me, it's like I get frustrated because I can't run and gun alone. I can't push objectives alone because I'm always facing 2 or 3 players. And I think that's a big negative. I mean, it's not, I don't want to say it's a negative. I don't want to say it's a negative, right? Because, it's people are playing it's an objective based game. They don't give a lot of rewards for playing for kills and stuff. It's not like Call of Duty where you get kill streaks and you get, and your individual play is rewarded, right? It's team play. And so it's a team game. And so people play it that way, which is great. But if you're not part of the team, or the team isn't playing the way you want to play, it's like you're kind of screwed. And it's like I just remember one of the times that we played. I think you and I played together. It was like that mode where it's like one guy gets the crown, like whoever has the highest kills in the team gets the crown or whatever, and like so they do more damage and earn more
the
points.
hot shot,
yeah. And it was like every time I tried to press it, I ran into 4 players, the hot shot, and there were like 3 other players around them at all times, and it was like. I was better than every one of those players individually. And when I did get them individually, I would get the kill, but I can't beat 4 of them at once. Right. Well, and that's what I ran into.
The point was to protect the hot shot because you get more points for collecting those tags while that person is hot shot. It's worth
which was stupid because the hot shot moves faster, does more damage, gets more points, right? Like they're supposed to be the tank running around like, being a hot shot. And instead it was like, protect the crown. Like, let's all just, turtle up and protect our prize. And
God save the king.
Oh, get out. Like, and so to me, it was like, I don't enjoy that as a solo. If I'm running with a group of players and we're all calming and talking and doing things proper,
Yeah.
then that sort of thing works out. It wasn't what I was in there for, so I was like, I'm not having fun. But so X Defiance has problems. Gray Zone Warfare is kind of is struggling as well. They're not doing. I don't think they're doing well. And another game with tons of potential, but only one thing to do in that game, and it's like, and they run into the content problem of like there's only so much you can do in the game. It's in a lot of ways kind of like a single player game where it's like when you're done on the missions, there's nothing else to do.
Yeah. Unless they've got a constant like a continuous roadmap of content that they're going to be throwing out, which I can't imagine that they don't. But maybe just the timing of when. Enough. Yeah, it's the timing. But so Gray Zone, I think, is a great game. I played it for a while, but the problem again, that's not a game you really want to play by yourself, dude. No. And and with it being, I think, PC only, that kind of limits who you can play with in certain, scenarios. And I want that game to do. You know what, dude? I've said this before. I've gone on record saying this. I want all of these games to do well. And you want to know why? Because it'll push Call of Duty to innovate.
Yep.
It'll push them to be better. And that, as Call of Duty fans, ultimately should be what we want. So, again, when I see people throwing shade on all these other games, dude, it's infuriating to me because it's like, on one hand, you're bitching about Call of Duty like we all do. And then when something else comes out, they get all tribalistic about it. And that's why it's just silly to me. But yeah, I want these games to do well.
You know a game though, I will say there's one game that I really, I want it to get its butt kicked so hard. It changes its mindset and nobody ever does this again. Arena Breakout Infinite. That game is that game has gone down the pay to win monetization scheme so hard. I hope this style dies hard and fast. And here's why. So Arena Breakout, again, kind of in the extraction shooter mode, right? I believe it has a multiplayer version element to it. I don't remember off the top of my head. I haven't
never even tried it.
I haven't played it yet, but I've heard a lot about it, and I've watched a lot of people enjoy aspects of it. But one thing that they introduced was armor, right? They have different tiers of armor, which is great, but you can buy the highest tier of armor, right? It's for sale, which somebody was testing it, and they found like it could eat like 40 rounds dead center.
That's crazy.
Like it was just eating rounds, and I forget who it was that was testing it. It might have been True Game Data. It might have been somebody else. I don't remember. But they put 40 something rounds into this armor plate before it broke, and they're like, "What the hell is this?" Like standard armor was like 10 or 15 rounds. Like it was such an advantage. They were like, no one's going to do this. No one's going to kill somebody like this, and you can buy it.
I'm going to say this. I think, in my personal opinion, gaming is worse off to me now since they've introduced the stores and all the fucking monetization for these games than it was before all that shit hit. Like, to me, it was just so much better. I had way more fun playing games back before SBMM became a real thing, before the store, before they started worrying about, casuals or sweats or any of that, and it just felt like they just made games. That kind of thing right there. I mean, yeah, I guess I kind of want that one to fail too, because that's horse shit.
Yeah. I don't like. I agree. I think games were generally better back in the day, like when you bought a complete game, right?
Yeah.
And you just played that game, and that's what you played, and that was the game, and that was the game forever. Right? It been
more fun.
30 years. It's been 30 years since the titles on, so I for everybody listening at home, not watching the live stream, I have N64 games on display above me, and I'm pointing to them, right? But I mean, these games are like 30 years old, and they're the exact same games that I bought 30 years ago, right? There's no DLC, there's no addition to them. You played them for the life of the game, and then maybe you went back, played different playthroughs, but there wasn't this ongoing drip of content that we have. And I actually like it back when you didn't have any DLC at all. Like that's when gaming was at its best, because the games had to be the best, right? Like you didn't, if they weren't good, you didn't buy them.
There was competition too. Like
Yeah,
we've
and you
talked
got
about this
we got a
before.
lot of games. We got a lot of games that would come out in the
Rainbow
course of a
Six,
year.
Ghost Recon, Battlefield, Call of Duty. There was a lot of games and a lot of competition, and I think that's what's kind of lacking right now. But yeah, like seriously, like I said, to me, the downfall of everything, and it's just gotten progressively worse, was as soon as they started monetizing this shit. And keep in mind, dude, I'm a capitalist. I believe in the free market and everything. But as a consumer, when the greed takes over and I can see the greed, that's what gets me fired up.
Okay, but I'm going to point this out. I'm going to devil's advocate this and flip it around. That if we stayed with the old model of you built one complete game and we expect it to look and play like games do now, right? Like if you go back and play older games, like they are graphically not as good, they're clunkier. There's a lot of mechanics that didn't have, like that we have now, that had to be developed over time. We wouldn't have that without paying $150, $200 for a game. And this idea that we will monetize the game is what allows them to develop a lot of extra stuff that we do appreciate, right? Like that we do like. And so I think you have to take it with a little bit of a balance of that. Them monetizing other aspects of the game helps keep the cost of the game down, right? And I look at that Wu King, right? That's what it is. The Wu King,
Wukong or whatever.
Wukong,
Yeah.
whatever.
Black
the one
Myth.
that's
Just call it that.
Black Myth. Perfect. That game is going to be like, kind of like some, like Hogwarts, like these other ones that it's a big deal for a very short amount of time. And then everybody that wants to play it will have played it. And then it will be in the discount bin. And it'll get like a second wave when it hits, the $15 bin.
But
of people playing
they've
a little
already
bit.
sold, I think, like 10 million copies, and that game's going to end up being Game of the Year, dude.
It better be at this rate.
That game is going to be Game of the Year.
But that's the thing, right? Like they're not, and this has been a problem, so Shadow of the Colossus is another one similar to that, right? Where it's like, that's it, right? It's done. It will be done. It will have a Game of the Year edition. People will pick it up for like half the price, and it will be done, right? And no one will talk about it again except as a comparison for the next one to come. And so if you're a development studio, that's high risk, because if it doesn't sell 10 million copies, you're out of business. With the cost it takes to develop a game, I mean, GTA 6 is what, $2 billion now? They've reported that it's cost. They've spent $2 billion on that game, and it's not out for another year.
Guarantee it'll have issues on launch too.
Yeah, absolutely. But like you look at that cost, right? If there's no way to like, how many games have failed that just destroyed studios, right? Like so if these studios, if they don't monetize it long term, how do you make $2 billion back, right? How do you profit on that enough that it justifies the development of it? And the answer is you have a long tail beyond sales. And to be honest, like GTA 5 lasted, was played as much as it was because of the online experience, right? And the online experience only exists because they could monetize it, which they did a phenomenal job of that, by the way. But
right.
like, you don't have that GTA, nobody would be playing GTA right now, right? We would be in a GTA desert, and nobody would tolerate them taking this long to put out GTA 6. Which
sure.
is, so I think monetization over time has some advantages. It has benefits if it's used right. But if it's used wrong, like loot boxes, right? Like gambling for better stuff, gambling so that you can compete, or straight up buy your way to the top.
Throwing out a fucking game on sale that you're going to shut down, like the mod for, like that. It's that kind of greed, dude. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
That's the stuff we got to get rid of, right? Like, yeah, it's not the fact that it can't be that monetization exists. That's not right. Okay.
No, it's just the way they go about it.
Yeah, it's the abusive version of it, right? It's the pay to win. It's the it's the gamble to win. scenarios.
Well, like I said too last week, if Activision, Call of Duty, right? If it came down to a choice between their profits and our fun, what do you think they're going to choose?
Oh, they're taking their profits. They're definitely taking their profits.
So I think that's kind of what it all comes down to for me, right? It's and I'm not a moron. I know how business works. I've been in the business world for decades too. It's just from a consumer standpoint that it just kind of bugs me, because it's like all these decisions are based on this. And if you notice, the fun factor has gone, profits might be going up, but the fun factor's going fucking down.
It's definitely down. Yeah.
And that's the point that I'm trying to make. I think overall, maybe I didn't articulate that well earlier, but that's it. It's like profits up, fun down.
Yeah. And we gotta find a way to get rid of that, like, and balance that out. And I think we've been doing better lately with that. But yeah, my daughter is outside having fun.
That's hilarious.
So
that's just what kids do, man. They just walk around and sing and,
holler and all
sound
that.
like a siren in the sea or some shit, dude.
Welcome to my world. And she's like out on the other side of a wall, so it's even louder than it should be. It's even louder in person. But yeah, so so I don't know. I think at the end of the day, gaming is in a better spot than it's been for a while. I think we're finally coming out of the slump from the pandemic, and we're starting to get some ideas out there and seeing some games kind of be successful out of the norm, which is good. And then hopefully a lot of this pushes the games forward, and we start getting we start moving the gaming world in a better direction. That's what I think we're going to get into.
I just want games to be more fun, be fun again, and that's we've said that several times. Fun should be the priority, fun, or at least it is for players.
Yeah, fun should be always, to quote Tomas Hertl, Sharks player. But with that, we are pushing our limits, and I think we need to we're going to wrap it up on that one, and so we're wrapping up. My youngest says hello, and and so I'm going to run us out. And yeah, definitely, if you haven't hit our Facebook or our Twitter page, like our page, Slightly Above Average Gaming. YouTube is getting some updates as well this week, and then our Discord is live. Jay can put that in the chat afterwards, and you can grab a link to the Discord. And yeah, we will. We're going to catch you all on the next one.
Well, and don't forget, we both stream on Twitch too. If you want to come tell us how bad we are.
Yeah, absolutely. We're always available.
Yeah.
This has been SuboneKD, along with J007tv and the Slightly Above Average Gaming Podcast. We're logging off now, so we'll see you next time.